There are no words, are there really? Il Maestro Ennio Morricone, a true legend in cinematic history. A man whose film scoring and integrity, absolutely changed the way that cinema is viewed and experienced. Together with his old schoolmate, and they grew up together, Sergio Leone, they eradicated the Hollywoodized Western, the way it looked, and more importantly, the way it sounded. Ennio Morricone and Sergio Leone despised the term spaghetti Western, and yet that term, which they forged, will endure forever. Morricone, using the sweeping lyrical beauty of Eda Dell'Orso's vocals, an Italian singer who he would collaborate with many, many times, 32 times at my last count, and they changed the fabric of how we view cinema, of how we view stories. Leone with his amazing visuals, Morricone with the emotion behind it, even towards the most dangerous and unpredictable of people, and the most volatile of scenarios: violence, corruption, backstabbing, murder, rape. And yet Morricone could slaver absolute romance and lyricism over the top of all of this, as you can hear there. But not only that, Morricone didn't just create westerns and the whole idea of sweeping lyrical harmonies. He worked in horror, he worked in comedy, he worked in romance, he worked in thrillers, historical epics. There was no boundary to what Morricone could do. And one of the great things about him is that it's a very identifiable, singular voice that he possessed. He never left Italy to go to Hollywood. He never did that. He never learned to speak English. Well, why should he? It did create problems, obviously, when collaborating with filmmakers. But I love the fact that he would receive a script. This wasn't always how it worked. He would receive a script, and he's to perform the music, to write the music and compose it for this particular movie. He'd read that. He would then create these enormous long suites, these elegiac, sweeping, momentous pieces of music, almost mini symphonies. And then the filmmaker would have to literally cobble their film together to fit what he's done, or chop what he's done down and use it throughout the movie. But that's the way he worked, and boy did it work. Listen to this. Once Upon a Time in the West, and Eda Dell'Orso's amazing, spiritual, heart-rending vocals. But we'll play a few more. Sadly, Il Maestro, and if you've got one, raise it now, to a man that changed the sound of cinema forever and leaves such an incredible legacy behind him that, even though he's now gone, we could spend the rest of our lives enjoying his music and never tire of it, and possibly always find something new. He did that many. Il Maestro, rest in peace, sir. He died at the age of 91. It was a fall, and at home. And at that age, people are very frail, and in hospital. Here's the mission now, which he should have got an Oscar for. He died in hospital, surrounded by his family, but his wife was there, and it was complications ensuing from the fall. Broke a femur, and he is a state icon in Italy. So you would expect nothing but possibly a state funeral, days off for the population. The rest of the world know him, revere him, love him. He was one of the few film composers, even during the 60s, that became a household name, mainly because of the Dollars trilogy. Only a select handful have ever achieved that. I'm speaking to a lot of people now who are film soundtrack collectors and obsessives. So to you this is nothing, you know all this stuff. But many people out there who just occasionally watch a film but still recognise his music and fall in love with it and be entranced by it, and his name would sink in. Even before the likes of John Williams or Jerry Goldsmith or Vangelis or, these days, Hans Zimmer. Morricone broke all the boundaries of class, age, religion. His music spoke to literally everybody. Often commanding immense orchestras, such keening strings, such swooning lyrics, and amazing, occasionally for horror and westerns and thrillers, he would bring in dissonance, brash, weird percussion, acoustic guitar, the female voice, well, other human voice, just human voices, animal sounds, to create and utilise sound in such a unique way. So gifted. He thought outside the box, thought beyond, the typical composer's box of tricks. The panpipes, the mission, so glorious, so heartfelt. It's exhilarating, it's spiritual, but it's also deeply, deeply moving. I want to read to you what he left behind. This is what he wrote, and this has been published in the Italian press. This was on his deathbed. I, Ennio Morricone, am dead. So I announce it to all the close friends that always supported me, and also to the faraway friends, which I salute with great affection. There's only one reason that brings me to say goodbye in this way, and also to require a strictly private funeral. I do not want to bother anybody. Bother anybody. Whether many people know it, understand it, or consciously care about it, he has changed and bothered almost everybody who's ever watched a movie. His score for Cinema Paradiso pretty much exemplifies that. Beauty, dreams, this is what he gave to us all in rich, beautiful music that feels organic, feels emotional and heartfelt. It gets inside you, and it never leaves, never leaves. I'm going to play a few more select pieces, because some of his stuff wasn't just this heartbreaking stuff. He could do anything. Don't forget, Ennio Morricone scored one of my favourite, possibly my favourite film of all time, which is John Carpenter's The Thing. And I do love this story that John Carpenter, who'd grown up with westerns, and he'd only scored his films prior to The Thing because he was cheaper and he was on time. But now, with Universal backing him, he thought, okay, I'll just concentrate on directing the movie. I'll get someone else to score it. Because I've got the money, who can I get? I'll get the greatest composer on the planet. I'll get Ennio Morricone, who did the spaghetti westerns. I'll get him. So, Ennio Morricone, who never left Rome, composes for the script of The Thing. And what he's done, he's listened to what Carpenter had done with his Moogs and his old, emulators and synthesizers, and he's copied it. He's copied Carpenter's haunting, repetitive beat and his droning, ambience. And Morricone copied that, but with a full orchestra. So when Carpenter got it back, it's like, did I write this in my sleep? I can't do it because it sounds better. And isn't it so ironic that Morricone only got 2 Oscars? He got one in, I think, 2007 for his contributions to the world of film music and the world of movies in general. An honorary one, when he should have got the Oscar, a few dozen times over in the decades prior. And then, of course, in 2017, 2016, he gets the Oscar for Quentin Tarantino's The Hateful Eight. And what was the music in The Hateful Eight that Morricone got the Oscar for? It was the offcuts that Carpenter didn't use from The Thing. Oh, how things turn, But the reason why that music was in The Hateful Eight is because Tarantino was basically paying homage to Carpenter's The Thing. Set in the ice and snow, an isolated little outpost. No one can get in, no one can get out, and nobody inside can trust anybody. Somebody there isn't who they say they are. So those bits that Carpenter didn't use in the film The Thing, but were always on the album, and fans celebrate it, got in there, and he got the Oscar for it. Isn't that amazing? This, of course, is The Untouchables. Morricone was great at doing these huge, long, epic pieces, which would then play out in various versions, slowed down, speeded up with extra additions, another foundation or an overlay throughout the rest of the movie and the score. Often just variations on a theme. Didn't matter. He created so many themes. And this is exciting. This is like the main theme for The Untouchables, but it also plays over that climactic chase. See, again, you've got that steady beat, you've got the long chords, that long note progression, and then you have these weird little bits. He'd often bring in harmonicas and flutes, the vocals, scratchiness, edginess creeps in to pepper and punctuate these long lines, adding colour, adding character, vitality. Let's go on to, this is my favourite of all the spaghetti westerns main themes, and it's the first. Acoustic guitar, a human whistle, he'll bring in a whip crack, and chanting, often unintelligible words, just grunts and weird sounds, ululations from the human vocal cords to create a sound, an element of music. We saw everything as music. Just tapping something could be used. A cough could be used, brushing one's hair. Any sound could be used and incorporated to create a part of a musical canvas. It's exquisite, that. And the way that this builds and builds, gets faster. It makes me reach for things like this. A sense of rhythm, of riding. This opens it out. This gives like a sense of place, of distance, and of course of the riding. It's here now. We rise up. This is only a short piece of music, and yet it has has so much going on, so much revolutionary design work that it confounded other composers at the time and totally set cinema goers' ears alight. But we'll go on to one of the favourites of all time, The Ecstasy of Gold, and The Good, the Bad and the Ugly. Eddie Del Orso's vocals again. How this starts off. It's gentle. It's in earnest, and it's almost melancholy. But it will build as the ecstasy of gold, the hopefulness, the greed of man takes over. I know people that actually seen Ennio Morricone in concert, and they were all reduced to tears on many occasions throughout that concert. Broke down in tears about 5 or 6 times. In the years since I discovered Morricone, now I discovered him with the spaghetti westerns, and then I would throughout the 70s see his name again, and I would learn to be slightly worried, not in a bad way, when I saw his name appear on the credits of a movie. And what it was the film Orca, which broke me in two. Jaws rip-off, it's not at all. It's a different story altogether. And the Orca is the hero of the piece. And like many cinematic heroes, he loses his loved ones and has to go on a vendetta against Richard Harris. But the main theme, all the music for Orca is tremendous. But the scene that I had to be literally dragged out of the cinema at a tender age, screaming and wailing and bawling, was when the Orca pushes his dead mate to the beach where Richard Harris's fisherman lives, as a sign, this is what you did, and you killed my unborn baby as well, because his mate was pregnant. I've since watched the film many times, but the music in that is what then formed a huge relationship I had with Morricone, where I would, wow, Morricone's done this, it's going to be great, but, oh God, can I go through it? Of course. And I'm prepared for that heartbreak every time, because he definitely gets in there. See how the Ecstasy of Gold is built. Tuco, Eli Wallach is running around this old Etruscan cemetery. It's the jangling. You have chimes, you have bangles, you have bells. Discord, it shouldn't work, but it does. How awesome is that? Well, if I can find it, I'm trying to find it. Eddie Del Orso would also collaborate on this. Folks, those of you that know me and watch these videos will know I often get very emotional. I'm going to try not to do it this time, but I'll fail. Testament to Morricone's power. weave such tragedy and turn it into something so immaculately beautiful that even though it's painful, it's, you know, it's a scintillating experience at the same time. I remember first seeing Orca, being dragged out. But I went back to the next showing. I sat through it, cried my eyes out. There's a sense of finality to this. This is the finale cue of the movie. The orca's got its revenge, and now the orca, under the ice floe, is just heading out to sea. Such an incredibly potent motif. The depth that it goes to, and then it can soar. I don't know how you could play in an orchestra this kind of music. Do you divorce yourself from it? Now on the violins, they're going to start snapping because they've become waterlogged with tears. I mean, I've been playing my heartstrings. Okay, we've got to do it. This is the good, the bad, the ugly. But you knew that. Harmonica, jaw iron, and of course it's emulating the howl of the coyote. And a single would be released of this, going on to absolutely huge, huge success. Morricone didn't just adopt Fender, adopt the 60s vibe for Italian cinema, the comedies and the romance and the jazzy upbeat stuff, which he would do. He would take that and he would make it his own. He would add elements. He would make that his own sort of, genre, by adding it to these elements of just sweeping, emphatic statements. Isn't it awesome? Sorry. Should be wielding this. In this world, there are those who compose music and those who just listen to it. Morricone, sir, you composed. For the betterment of all of us. Cinema is enriched by your enormous contribution. go on to, let's have a little look here. Oh, I'm trying to think of something else here. What's this? Oh, we got that. I'm trying to see what else I've put on that little list. This breaks my heart as well. Indio and the pocket watch and the chimes. Colonel Mortimer. He would also compose for Dario Argento with The Cat o' Nine Tails and The Bird with the Crystal Plumage. Giallos. Some jazzy bits, but some harsh dissonance and scary, dense, moody ambience, which Carpenter would actually, via synth, would incorporate into his score. So you can see how that transition and that collaboration with The Thing turned out. The Thing, you say? The Thing? See, this basic, simplistic, minimal style, Carpenter was already doing that, but he may have wanted a more sweeping, organic sound from Morricone. But Morricone himself had often done very just minimalistic scores with other elements that creep in. Very effective, very haunting. Just trying to think what else we can play. Oh, here's one. This is one I love. This is State of Grace, which people don't ever seem to talk about these days. Sean Penn as the undercover cop who's got to infiltrate an Irish mob in Hell's Kitchen, New York. And of course, Gary Oldman, who's part of that mob. The two of them grew up together, they're buddies. Gary Oldman's character would be killed. Ed Harris runs this Irish mob, and on St. Paddy's Day, Sean Penn is going to make that stand. He's going to cross the big street procession and head into the bar where they all hang out for the final shootout. And weirdly, this is the main theme for State of Grace. And Sean Penn, his character, will enter a state of grace in his movements across the street, heading towards destiny. It's beautiful, it's slow, it's graceful, but the notes take a queasy, uneasy turn. Absolutely gorgeous. It's rhapsodic, but with that hint of darkness which weaves throughout all the beauty as well, tainting it, tinging it, and yet adding and making the whole thing even more entrancing. I'm gonna have to bow out soon, but this was like a little tour through some highlights of the career spanning decades and decades and a multitude of film scores, way over 400 film scores. Is anyone ever gonna, mimic that? Ennio, Il Maestro, you will live forever, forever. In our ears, our hearts, and our soul. Rest in peace. But keep composing for the angels. Give them something to do. And have a bottle of vino while you're up there. Folks, this has been a tribute to Ennio Morricone. Please make time for his movies and his music. The man is immortal. And I'm going to see you all